Shocking Devils free agency update. Major signing incoming. Potentially that would upgrade this Devils roster for head coach Sheldon Keefe and get some more help on the team. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Ryan the Goose Gosiker, here with you on Devils Digest, bringing you the latest, greatest content as we always try to do. And this episode, I'm going to focus on some free agent targets, and one in particular that I think is very interesting and deserves a little discussion. But before we get into that, want you to be a subscriber here on Devils Digest. We got to get to 500. Our goal is to get to 500. We're over that 350 mark. We need your help to get to 500 subscribers, and then we can start taking it to the next level from there. So, again, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you. I know I've gotten some comments about people wishing they could subscribe more than once. Much appreciated, okay? But let's get into the program, okay? The Devils, we mentioned it, and we're going to keep mentioning it. This is a monster offseason for this team. As you continue to watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, you have to think if the Devils can upgrade this roster, redo their bottom six, they should be a team that can compete. And, again, we have fans, we have people in our comments that think, the core is not good enough regardless. But let's get into specifically today who the Devils are looking to target in free agency. There's been a lot of rumors about who the Devils should target from the Florida Panthers, and that one of them being Sam Bennett. However, it seems like every playoff goal and every playoff game that he plays in, it seems like he's adding another $1 million to his AAV. So it looks like he's going to be in the upwards, and again, whether he should get paid this or not is not up to me. It's up to the market. But you're looking at a guy that might make $10 or $11 million next year. I think we can all agree on that. No matter what you think of the player, the Devils are not in the market for that. So that's going to be, probably far gone. But another guy that's on that Florida roster is Brad Marchand, who got traded from Boston, long time, Boston Bruin. And there's a lot of teams that are going to be on Brad Marchand as he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And he's concentrated on the playoffs, which he should be. But the Devils should be interested in him. And that's really why I posed it as a question at the beginning and that's the goal. Let's break it down. Let's see. And should the Devils, by the end of this video, we'll tell you whether the Devils should or should not sign Brad Marchand. Now, looking at it again, Marchand's one of those players that you hate to play against. You love to have on your team. He's got almost 1,100 NHL games with the Boston Bruins, which is just kind of crazy. Obviously he means a lot to that city. And I would say, obviously, I think the Bruins are the favorite, just straight out of the gate, just, thinking, going back home and playing with them and everything. But the Devils definitely should be a team that inquires about Brad Marchand. There's a little bit here. There's a little bit here as well. And there was talks that the Devils potentially finish as runner-up for Marchand at the trade deadline. Again, what he brings to the table intangibly is something that the Devils don't have a lot of. Okay, he is that rare, mix of skill and grit that I know that's a big hot topic for everybody, and I know it's been on Twitter for Devils Twitter for the last few days. But he brings the rare combo together and really elevates, teammates, guys around him, and he plays with that edge that every team needs, and that the Devils have really been lacking for the last few years. I know they got Kurtis MacDermid so that he can fight Matt Rempe, and some other guys as well. But certainly Marchand would take that to a whole different level for New Jersey. It would instantly impact the roster, make them better. You would automatically shift Stefan Nason down to the bottom six. And as we mentioned, if Palat stays, which I don't think he does, and certainly if they're to sign Brad Marchand, there's no possible way that Andre Palat is on this roster. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But certainly Marchand would be a plug and play and a huge addition for this Devils team. Now, just looking at this, here's his game log. You're looking at the points and everything like that. Again, another solid year, 51 points for him. He's never been, he had 1 year, the 2018-2019 year, where he was a 100-point scorer. But other than that, he's not, the 100-point type guy. But he will impact the game in other ways, goals, assists, all that good stuff. But the leadership qualities as well is really what you're looking for. The nastiness a little bit, and just being that pest, right? You want guys that make other teams say, man, we don't want to play them because we have to face so-and-so. And this is just his playoff log. You can look, he's just been a playoff maniac. 10 points in every postseason since 2016, which is that's pretty good. So The guy not only is an impact player in terms of all the intangibles that we've been talking about, but he's also an impact player in terms of he actually puts points up on the board in the postseason. So he is a guy I think the Devils should look to target. However, I think they're going to be priced out of the market on this one. I think I was looking and I just Googled real quick, what is his expected contract coming up in the offseason. And typically I would think a lot of those projections maybe undershoot the contracts just because, the market will always raise the price. And that had it projected at 3 years, $7.8 million, which that's a lot. That's a lot of money for a guy that I believe he's 37 already, right? So by the time he runs that contract out, he'll be 40, okay? It's probably his last contract in the NHL, which is kind of crazy to say because I've known Brad Marchand in the league forever, okay? But I think $7.8 million could be too expensive for the Devils. However, going back to what I said before, if he was to come on, there's no way Andre Palat's $6 million. Fitz would have to get rid of all $6 million in order to open up a slot for Marchand like that. So while I like the potential fit, I do not see the price tag matching up. So I do not believe the Devils will and should pursue too far Brad Marchand. Like I would make phone calls, right? Be respectful. And if he wants to come for a visit, I'd bring him in for a visit. But that would be about the extent of it for me because $7.8 million for this roster that needs a decent amount of tweaks is just, that's not going to help them. It's not going to help them as much. The cost is going to be more than the benefit in my eyes. Okay. I'd love to hear what you have to think. Leave us a comment. I know you guys always do. You love the comment section. So definitely let me know what you're thinking there. But my thought is I love the idea. I do not actually like in principle signing them simply from a money perspective. If money wasn't an issue, then I would be much more on top of it. And we're talking about if money wasn't an issue, it's really if Luke Hughes was already under contract long-term, right? But we know Luke's getting the massive extension. He's going to eat up most of the salary cap jump. So the Devils don't really get a benefit. They get the benefit of it covering that. But you get what I'm saying. They don't get into, now they don't have an additional $9 million to spend. That $9 million is already accounted for, roughly, whatever his final contract comes out to be. So I just think $7.8 million could be way too much for New Jersey. So I think they're going to be out on Brad Marchand. But, man, I would certainly love to have him in New Jersey. And, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. He could have been a Devil for the second half of this year and how his intangibles would have helped this roster. But moving forward, I don't think he comes to New Jersey. He's got a lot of suitors. Boston, they're talking about potentially Colorado, Pittsburgh, because of his admiration for Sidney Crosby, stuff like that. So, I don't see him as a fit. I do not think Brad Marchand is coming to the Devils, but man, if money was no option and we were playing with monopoly money, I'd sign him in a heartbeat. So that's where I stand. I think the Devils are going to make some moves. Okay, I do. I don't think it's going to be a quiet offseason, but I don't think Brad Marchand is the move that they're going to make. I think it's going to be too much of their salary cap, and it could be if they did, it would come at the sacrifice of their bottom six, which after this year, I mean, we really can't be doing that much longer anymore. They got to take care of their bottom six and make sure they're all up to snub. So that's what I got today on Brad Marchand. So again, great idea, great prospective addition. I don't think he's going to be an actual addition. Leave us a comment. Let me know what you think. Again, as I mentioned, just looking at some comments as well. Much appreciate everybody reaching out. We had Mr. Zeke1519 said, sorry, unfortunately, I can only subscribe once. Otherwise, you would have been at 20,000 by now. So we much appreciate that. People letting us know what you think. People said, I have no faith in the GM. So whatever happens doesn't matter because I don't have any faith in Tom Fitzgerald. Also, remember, adding a guy like Marchand, who's really known for his playoff production and impact, right, he's better than Andre Palat. But the Devils did that with Andre Palat. They brought him in and they paid him over market just for his playoff production. You can see how that worked. Again, Brad Marchand is a much better player than Andre Palat. I'm just saying the last time the Devils gave big money to somebody that was much more known as a playoff performer than a regular season player, that was the result. So take it as you may. Okay, again, leave us a comment. Let me know what you think. And we appreciate you. Aiden and I appreciate you listening, watching, whatever you're doing with this content. Thank you. All right, and we'll catch you next time on Devil's Digest.